And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut down the middle here. So I want to make sure I'm in edge mode. I'm going to select this edge and go to Control right click to edge loop. So that's one way of doing it. Another way that will work just as well in this case, and also gives me a chance to just show you this very nice tool, is this one right here. The middle of this bottom row of buttons over here is Select Shortest Edge Path tool. So if you click that, you can select 2 points and automatically select the edge loop between the closest or the shortest path in edges between those 2 points. Now be sure you're doing this along the exact middle edge here. So you can see on the grid that that's at 0.5. So let's start there. I'm just going to either click or marquee drag around that 1 point. You see it selects a UV point, and then I'm just going to walk my way up, and I want to have this be my end point. I'm going to select that. You can see it automatically selects that edges. One thing you want to remember is right now you're still in this UV selection mode, so be sure you hit enter when you're finished with the selection, and then might as well also remember to hit Q to quit out of the tool. So again, whenever you see anything highlighted up here, you want to hit Q to quit out of it. So now with this edge selected, hold down Shift, hold down right mouse button, and I'm going to cut. I want to quickly review some of the visualization options within the UV texture editor. Just make sometimes seeing certain things certain kind of visual feedback that will make UV editing a little easier. So of course you have the grid, so you can toggle the grid off and on. That's that button right there. This is toggling the UV borders, so it makes bold the edges where you've cut the seams. Then we have the checkerboard, which we can overlay to see the amount of distortion we have in our current layout. And we have the toggle shaded UV display, and remember this allows us to see if there's any overlap. So again, this is just for demonstration, you don't need to follow along, but if I were to move this piece over on top of this one, you see how where there's overlap, you can see it's more blue. The transparency of the blue basically adds, so it's more opaque and more blue in this area where there's overlap. And also it makes it easier to tell if the UV might be flipped in the wrong direction. So if I intentionally flip this, as you can see, it shows red, and if you have a red overlapping a blue, then you get that purplish color. So it's very useful to when you're UV unwrapping that you have this on, so you can tell if a UV is flipped and also if it is overlapping another piece. I'm going to undo that. Okay. And something else that's new to my 2015 is the display UV distortion. So you can actually, it doesn't always seem to do what it should, because I can tell from the grid pattern that there's a lot of distortion, but yet when I go in here, everything is white. So this is not the best example of this, but what you would see if this is displaying what it should is the more red an area is, then the more compressed the UVs are, and then the more blue an area is, the more stretched it is. So basically it takes the relative distances between vertices on the actual geometry and the relative distances within the UVs. So if the distances within the UVs, the relative distances are smaller here than they are on the geometry, it's going to be shaded more red. And if the distances within the UVs are longer than they are on the actual geometry, then it's going to be more blue. Okay, but again, like I said, not the best example what we're using here. But in any case, that's what that does. And what we want to do now is select all the UVs. I'm going to go ahead and quit out of that tool, so hit Q. And I'm going to select all the UVs. And I'm going to scale them so that they are exactly 1/2 the height. So I need to press the R key for scale. And it might be a good idea to snap the pivot to the lower left corner. So I'm going to hold down the D key, and then I'm going to hold down the X key. So I'm holding down both D and X, and I'm going to drag this point until it snaps to the lower left corner. And then I can release D and X. And what I want to do now is go into the Tools tab. Some of you, if you're using the default layout in Maya, you might find the tools over here. But it's basically this will toggle it off and on. This thing that looks like a little icon with a wrench in it. And I want to turn on discrete scale. And I want to make this step size 0.5, so that every time I try scaling, it will be 50% of its previous size. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to confirm. And now, just along the U's, along the vertical axis, I'm going to scale this. I'm going to left click and drag down on this green square here. As you can see, it scales by exactly 50%. And now what I want is to move this piece, because remember we cut the left and the right halves, so I'm going to move this piece, and I probably want to do it with snapping enabled. So I'm going into the Move UV Shell tool. I'm selecting this right half, and I'm holding down X while I'm moving, and then snap it so it's very neatly and precisely above the other one. And now I'm going to select both. I want to hit Q after that. Hit R for scale, and again snap to lower left. This time I'm going to scale out in the horizontal. And I'm already at discrete scale of 50%, so this will make it, when I scale outward, it will make it twice as large. So holding, left clicking and holding on the red square would scale it out. Actually, we needed to do it a couple of times because each time is additional 50%. So scale it out. We're left with this, and if we toggle the checker tiles again, we'll see that it's a little better than what it was before. As you can see, the distortion is not as bad. That checkerboard, these checker patterns actually look, the squares within checker pattern actually look a little bit more like squares, whereas before they were very much stretched, going along the long way on the torus. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn this off and hit Q, and that's it.